Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is gonna be a quick one because I want to get this out as soon as possible because this is an announcement. So, you may remember the video I did about the entire Clarkdale overclocking competition. Well, this is the announcement. So, by now the competition has a little site on HWBot, so you can go there, you can see all the details about the competition. And it has a start date. The start date is the 13th of January. That is, as I'm recording this, less than a week away. And we are aware that not everyone is going to have their hardware until then, which is why the competition will also run for a little longer than usual, especially also because there's going to be another competition that runs alongside ours, which technically was on HWBot first, but we didn't know it was happening when we were planning the Clarkdale comp. And we asked around, and for time reasons, everyone kind of went, just it's fine to run them at the same time. Let's just run the Clarkdale comp for a little longer. But yeah, it starts at the 13th of January, and it's currently scheduled to end on the 23rd of February. But this might get even more extended, depending on how many people are competing, how much time people have, how much time other things take up for them. So it's gonna last at least until the 23rd of February. It might last a little longer than that still. So yeah, if what we're going through here sounds interesting to you, but you don't really know anything about it, you can look at the other video I did about Clarkdale as a platform, about what chips you can use, what motherboards to get. It's just the TLDR is, Clarkdale is just the first generation of Core i CPUs, specifically everything from a Core i3 530 to an i5 680. All of those CPUs are Clarkdale. There's also some Pentiums which you could use, there's some Xeons which you actually can't use, those are banned from the competition, and there's also Havendale, which is the mobile/low power variant of Clarkdale. You could also use one of those CPUs if you have them. But mainly it's going to be the i3 530 to i5 680. You can use any of those CPUs. There's no advantage to getting one of the i5s over an i3. There is no advantage. We did pre-test all of this. One of my very best CPUs is actually a 530, the lowest spec CPU there is, so it doesn't matter which one you have as long as it's a Clarkdale. For the motherboard, the budget option is this exact one, the Gigabyte H55M UD2H. This is pretty cheap, pretty easy to find, usually for around 20 euros. Usually it already comes with a Clarkdale CPU installed and a heatsink, and if you're lucky, also some RAM. If it doesn't come with some RAM, you can also find decent DDR3 for pretty cheap. So I have these ones here. With G.Skill DIMMs, it's pretty neat. You just need to look at the sticker. So for G.Skill, if you want some decent DDR3, just get any kit that's rated 1600 or higher and check the code here. And if it says 1040 in the middle, like here, then this is PSC. And if it says 0640, it's LPDA BBSE. Both of those chips are fine. And those kits will do pretty good compared to most DDR3 that's floating around out there. So you can find those. They are also kind of easy to find, and they're also pretty cheap. I have 4 of these and then 2 BBSC sticks, and I got them for I think around 2 euros per stick, so really cheap. This entire thing is kind of similar to a cheap-ass chip comp, where we're overclocking something that's pretty old and therefore pretty easy to find and pretty cheap to find, so it's very accessible. You technically don't even need a graphics card for this, because all of these chips have an integrated graphics unit, and one of the stages of the comp is actually overclocking that. You probably still want a GPU though, because having the iGPU on reduces your maximum core clocks a bit, so for the other stages it's not optimal. So I don't know, go find an NVS 300 for $5. That will work perfectly fine as a basic display out, and then all you would need is a cheap 15 euro SSD and a power supply, and you could see that this only needs a 4-pin. If you have an old 300 watt or something power supply sitting around, it will probably work for this. Clarkdale CPU is even heavily overclocked and not very power hungry. You can see the VRM on this. This is not very power hungry, so You don't need a super good cooler, you don't need a super good power supply. They're still very overclockable with like lower end options. So yeah, this is a pretty accessible competition, and yeah, that's pretty much all the hardware stuff. So let's talk a bit about more rules. So we went through the CPUs, we went through the dates. Let's talk about the stages. So the competition has 3 stages. The first stage is Cinebench R11.5. So that's the core clock stage, because like, Cinebench really only cares about core clock, everything else kind of doesn't matter for it. So that's the stage where you try to get your core clock on the CPU as high as possible, and you just go for that. The second stage is the iGPU stage, in which we will be running 3D Mark Ice Storm. So that's when you will be overclocking the iGPU on the CPU. Your RAM also kind of matters here, because that's of course used as the video memory for the iGPU. So you don't need a super good IC, you just wanna put the time in to manually tune it. And one important bit is also that you need a motherboard with display outputs, because not all motherboards have these. I think P55 motherboards, so like for this socket, which is LGA1156, there's H55, H57, and P55. And the P55 boards, as far as I know, either most of them or even all of them don't have display outputs, and for the iGPU stage you need display outputs, otherwise 3D Mark won't run. So that's kind of important to pay attention to when you pick up your motherboard. Again, if you get a UD2H, you'll be fine. And then the third stage is the RAM/QPI stage, where we will be running 7-zip with Benchmade. I think actually the Cinebench is also with Benchmade if you're on Windows 8 or newer. And yeah, so that one is again about RAM overclocking and also about the QPI. And I don't really want to spend too much time explaining what the QPI is. Think of the FCLK on Ryzen. That's basically what the QPI is on this CPU. Because this CPU, you'll see it in the other video I made, this actually has multiple dies. Like, it's made like Ryzen, it has a core die and an IO die. And the QPI is what connects those two and the RAM together. It's like basically the exact same thing as FCLK for like the newer Ryzen CPUs. So the last stage is about overclocking that. So yeah, 3 different stages, 3 different things we focus on with the CPU, because we didn't want to have a competition where it's just like the same thing, just with 3 different tests. So we wanted something that's like, has variety. And like, if you have a CPU that doesn't have great cores, but it has a really good iGPU, you can still be really good in one of the stages. So that's cool. Then there's some special rules, like all of these are on the HWBot site, so like just look at the site if you're not sure. But there's some special rules in terms of the verification screenshots. So of course you need to be using the competition wallpaper, which will be uploaded for you to download when the competition starts. You are allowed to use legacy versions of CPU-Z. That's important because, so the thing is, most of these CPUs are locked. There's only one unlocked Clarkdale CPU, that's the i5-655K, and that CPU seems to be extremely rare, like basically no one has it. So you will actually be overclocking these CPUs by raising the base clock, or the FSB as it's called here. Actually, I don't know if all motherboards call it FSB, but like I always call it FSB. And the problem is, when you raise your FSB high enough, CPU-Z will bug out, and it will show a different multiplier than what you have actually selected, and therefore it will read your clock wrong. And that's of course bad if you're overclocking, and older versions of CPU-Z, that's version 1.77 and older, don't have this bug, which normally you're not allowed to use older versions of CPU-Z on HWBot, but for this you are allowed to use that, so your clocks get read correctly. For GPU-Z it has to be the very newest version, so that's version 2.61. And yeah, for 3D Mark and System Info it also has to be like the newest version, or like a specific version or newer, like it is on the HWBot website. Just like if you have the newest version for everything, you're fine, except for CPU-Z you want to have like 1.77. And yeah, then there won't just be prizes for coming in first place with the highest score, with the highest overclock. There will actually be some special scores as well. The first one is the best bench rig picture, and that's actually something I forgot. You need to attach at least one picture of your benching setup for each submission, and the person who takes the best picture gets an extra award. Then the second one is the slowest score. So for each stage, the person who gets the very slowest score will also get a thumbs up, just like at least you tried. And there will also be an extra award for the weirdest setup, or the weirdest RAM setup. Like, it can be an entire setup, it can just be your RAM. Basically, just do something that's like really weird, like something that you wouldn't expect to see, something that makes you go like, what the hell is going on when we look at the submission. The best one of that is also gonna get like a special thing for them. So you can't just, you don't have to be like in first place to win here. You can also get, winner podium positions for other things like that. Yeah, then, the rest is pretty much self-explanatory. You can use whatever hardware you want as long as it's Clarkdale. You can use different CPUs for each stage. You can use different motherboards for each stage. Like, you can swap everything out as you want as long as it's Clarkdale. You can use whatever cooling you want. You can use whatever operating system you want. So, yeah, like standard HWBot rules there. One thing I should maybe mention is on iStorm you can't use LOD or tessellation tweak. I'm not aware that this is a thing for iGPUs on Intel CPUs, but like it's not allowed on iStorm, because like it is allowed on a lot of other 3D tests. It's not allowed on iStorm, so pay attention to that. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's everything I wanted to say. So that's the short video about the Clarkdale competition. So yeah, the website is online. Just go on HWBot. You will find all the info there. And yeah, to everyone who thinks this is interesting, to everyone who has like, interest in this, and like it's really not expensive to get some hardware to play around with for this competition. So yeah, I guess I'll see you in the rankings. Goodbye.